and welcome back to another Photoshop 101. I'm going to continue with the image I was using of Rochelle from last week. So now I want to add a little bit of extra pizzazz to it by dropping in some textures. A couple of different ways that you can do this. This is one that I've used quite a few times. This is a smoke layer that I actually got from the Raw Exchange. So if I grab that and drag it over and just drop it on top. So just to show you again, so I'll just get rid of that, go back to this image, just select the image just using the move tool, drag it, and then just drop it straight over the top. Now as you can see, it really doesn't fit, but that doesn't matter. I can resize it. If you go into the transform tool, you can turn it clockwise, you can flip it horizontal, you can flip it vertical, or you can just use the little nodes just to move it around. If you don't see the little nodes, you just need to make sure that you have this show transform controls ticked. If you don't have that ticked, you won't see the transform control. So if you click that, and they'll come back. Now as you can see here, this is over in your layer palette, which will just be on the side of your screen here. It may look slightly different layout to mine, but so you've got two layers there. You've got layer 0, which is the bottom layer, and the top layer. You've got the two little eyes. Now if you turn that, click on the eye, that will make that top layer invisible, and you can see the layer below. Click there again, and it comes back. Now as you can see, it's not very helpful as it is like that, because you can't see Rochelle at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a blend mode to change that. So if you come up here, you've got your various different blend modes. Now what you do need to remember when you're doing these is that multiply drops out the whites. Same with darken, color burn, all that in that section will pretty much drop your whites. Everything in this section, which is lighten, screen, will drop out your blacks. Now what I mean by that is if we set it to screen mode, all the blacks disappear into the background of the image, and all you can see is the smoke. Now we could set that to lighten, but it doesn't do as good a job as screen, and that drops all the black out of that image. If we were to set this to say multiply, all the white drops out. So because we want to get rid of the black and keep the smoke, we're going to set it to screen. Now that can be a little strong, I think. So something else we can do is, still having this layer selected, we can change the opacity. So we can make it so that it's a bit see-through, so it's not quite as strong. So that's almost virtually gone, and we can leave it at about, say, 50%. And that gives us some smoke in the background. Now you could leave it like that, but I think it's a little bit distracting over her face. So this is where we come into using a layer mask. So if you click on your little icon down here, and that will give you a layer mask. So that gives you this little box here, and it's clicked or linked, that's what that little icon there means, to this layer here. Now while it's white, you can't see anything, but if we get a brush, and it really doesn't matter what brush, just on normal mode, set to we'll say 100% to start with, and the flow on 100%, and make sure it's a nice soft brush, so hardness down to 0. And if we've got our colours indicated here set to black and white, which is the default colour, so you can click there and that's the default colours, and you can use this little arrow to change it backwards and forwards. And while we're on this, we can paint out the areas we want to hide. So black hides things and white reveals things. So if we go and click on here, we are actually getting rid of, and I'll just go in a bit closer so you can see, we're getting rid of the smoke that is on Rochelle's face. Now if we go up to an area we don't want, we can then hit the X button to change so that we've got changed over to white, and we can paint that back in. This is what they refer to as non-destructive editing. Okay, so that's just putting a simple basic layer mask on. Now if you can turn that layer mask on and off so you can see what you've done. So if you right click, and you can go disable layer mask, and that'll put like a red tick through it and it's back over Rochelle's face, or you can enable layer mask and that shows back what you've put in. Now you might think it's a bit harsh in some spots and you didn't want to get rid of quite so much. You can change your opacity for your brush, say down to around 50%, and you can put some of that back in, and you can soften it off in some of the areas. So this is one of the debris magic overlays that is in a new pack that I'm putting out on the website. Same again, click on the move tool, you can grab it, go over to your image and drop it straight on. Now you can resize these, because it's just going over the top, you can resize it quite easily. It really won't make any difference to the image. Then same again, just come through, go to screen, and that will drop out all the black and leave the white. Now obviously it just looks a bit too harsh, so especially on her face, again we're going to come through and we're going to put a mask layer. Picking up our brush, we're going to select black and we're going to get rid of that on her face. Now if we drop that down to 50% or thereabouts, we can get rid of, just mask them off a little bit so they're not quite as bright and they don't stand out as much. And of course we can also drop the opacity layer down a little bit, so it just looks like there's a little bit of debris in the dust and the smoke. So that's quite down, we've got it down to about 7%. Now if you want to put a new layer on, you can just click this and that adds a new layer. We'll try for something else just to give it a different texture, different look to it. This one has obviously got a white background, so we're going to grab that and we're going to put it over the image. Now before we were setting the other ones to screen mode, this time we're going to set it to multiply, and it's going to drop out all the white and it's just going to leave these lovely gold flecks and a little bit of the other colour. Now it's probably way too strong, so we're just going to drop that back just a little bit, and perhaps we don't want it on her face so much, so put a mask on, set it to maybe about 50%, and we'll just remove it from off her face. And that just gives you a lovely sort of light flare pattern that we put through it. That's pretty much all there is to adding a texture. It's not quite as complicated as people think it is. If you want to, that's just adding a black and white and dropping it out. You can go and add an actual texture. Just going to grab one out of texture pack 1, and we'll just grab the linen look, and we'll open that up using the move tool. We're just going to grab it, go over and place it on top of the stack. Now every time you add something, it adds a new layer, and if you want to go back and change any of the layers that you've done previously, you just have to make sure that that layer is selected. Right, so this one's been put over the top, and again it's completely covered the image underneath it, which is not what we want. Now I could set it to multiply, and that doesn't do such a bad job. Put it to screen, it really doesn't do much. This is where we come to the next panel, and this is where we've got a couple of different blend modes that are really good for doing something like this. So you've got overlay and you've got soft light. So if you put it on soft light, it drops it down quite a lot, so you can actually see the image through it. It lightens it as it goes, and hence why it's called soft light. If it was to put it on overlay, it's not quite as light as the soft light, but you can still see quite a lot of it through the back image through it. Now what it does, if you have, I'm hoping you can see on here, there's a texture in that linen which is an actual, there's marks and scratches and there's creases and all sorts of things in it. When you select the overlay or the soft light mode, it leaves that texture on the image, so it gives it quite a soft additional texture, kind of like a canvas, so that can be a really, really lovely look. But you can still see through, but you might find that it's a bit overpowering. Again, you can come down and you can change the opacity, so you can have it so it's just be able to see it, or you can tone it right back. And of course you can put a layer mask on it, clicking your layer mask, go in with your brush, and if you want to remove it from various areas, so say her face. Now you may not necessarily want it all removed from her face, because it has lightened it up quite a bit, so you can go through again, change it back to white, and make sure that it's dropped down in the opacity, perhaps even a little bit further, and you can put some of that back in, so you have a little bit of that texture, but you may not necessarily want all of it. So that's pretty much it. Just added quite a few different layers, so we've gone from a stock standard image, which we could have done in Lightroom or whatever. We added some smoke, added some dust particles to the smoke, added some bokeh through the background, and then added a texture on top of that. You can play around with that, and you could go for hours and hours and hours doing various different bits and pieces, but that is pretty much how you run through the blend modes and add a layer mask. So next episode I'm going to go through, perhaps do a little bit of dodge and burn, and explain how that can improve a photo, how to do it, various ways that you can do it. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and bye for now.